Welcome to the GAMERamble video review for Citrouille, narrated by me, DarkCloud. As always, the text version of this review can be found on the GAMERamble website linked below. The TLDR is that it's easy to mistake Citrouille for a casual game because of the adorable visuals, but players who underestimate it are in for a shock. This game feels like it was ripped straight out of an 80s arcade and given a brand new lick of paint. Citrouille is best played with a friend in co-op, but it's a lot of fun even on your own and definitely a hidden gem. Gameplay receives an 8 out of 10. The game is tough as nails, but easy to pick up and play. Graphics receives a 9 out of 10. Everything from the designs to the animations is superb. Sound receives a 7 out of 10. The tunes are good and the sound effects are more than decent. The overall score for Citrouille is 8 out of 10. And now for the full review. Praline and Vanilla is just two ordinary witches with silly hats and a weak spot for candy. Unfortunately for the duo, they ran into Anise and Réglisse, two decidedly unfriendly witches who make off with all the candy. This leaves Praline and Vanilla with no choice but to set off through hostile territory in pursuit of the villains. While the locations they traverse are pretty, it's certainly no walk in the park as the two witches have to face off against tons of enemies and do a little gardening along the way. Citrouille is definitely a game that was heavily influenced by the single-screen arcade titles of yesteryear. However, instead of directly copying a tried and tested concept and slapping on some nostalgia-inducing retro visuals, Lumen sections spend a little more time creating it to make it unique. The gameplay style of the game will feel familiar to everyone who squandered away their pocket money in arcades during the 80s. Still, after seeing the visuals, nobody will mistake Citrouille for an old game. Your primary goal in Citrouille is to make your way through more than 50 levels spread across 5 themed areas. Levels are completed by planting flowers on all the grassy sections, but the presence of numerous enemies means this task is not as easy as it sounds. The witches only have to walk over the relevant spots for flowers to sprout, but dealing with enemies is trickier. While both Praline and Vanille wear unique hats that they can use to attack enemies, neither can jump. Instead, they have to rely on their spells to create magical ladders, which they can use to traverse the platforms. Small enemies can be disposed of by hitting them with your hat, but doing so to large enemies will only stun them for a short time. Don't think you can traipse over these stunned enemies either, as any contact spells instant death for your witch. It's usually better to avoid them or use the random gifts that appear on the levels to take them out with a special attack. These range from hurling a boxing glove to dropping a bomb, but each one has one use only, and you can kill yourself with them if you're not careful. One thing about Citrouille that really stands out apart from the charming visuals is the difficulty. It only takes one hit from an enemy or trap to kill you, and each level is absolutely littered with both of these and more. The enemies have their own movement and attack patterns, although a few can make unexpected moves and catch you by surprise if you don't keep a close eye on them. From bats and ghosts to spitting snails, sultry succubi and speedy salamanders, Citrouille features a nice selection of enemies that all look as adorable as they are deadly. Special mention should go to the little bunnies, who all look as cute as can be, until you realize that they can eat all your flowers if they come near them. Some enemies, like the salamander, will also hunt you down with deadly precision, and if you run out of lives, it's all the way back to the start of the first stage of the level. In fact, this game is so unforgiving that even the extra lives must be hunted down and attacked during special stages if you want them. Citrouille is a game where you cannot stand still for even a moment if you want to stay alive, making it feel even more like a real arcade game. There is good news for players who feel intimidated by the game's difficulty. First up is the co-op mode, which means you don't have to brave all these levels alone. Bear in mind that both players share the pool of lives, and you can take out your partner if you're not careful with the special attacks, but overall having a friend along can make things a little easier. There's also a versus mode, where you get to choose between 4 witches, as the antagonists of the story also join the fight. Up to 4 players can duke it out in one of 5 arenas to either be the last witch standing or to have the most flowers on the screen after a certain amount of time. This mode is a lot of fun, but some more arenas would have been appreciated. According to the developers, it only takes about 30 minutes for a skilled player to complete all the levels in Citrouille. Obviously, this is not something you will accomplish on your first try, so don't expect to breeze through everything. Thankfully, there is some good news for players who simply cannot overcome the challenge. Citrouille also features a custom mode where you can increase the number of lives to 15, lower the speed of enemies, and turn off friendly fire. This makes the game more accessible and ensures everyone has a fair shot at completing it. Finally, if even custom mode proves too much, a cheat code is hidden away in the game that can grant you many more lives. We recommend sticking to the original mode if you want the challenge, or the arcade mode if you want an even bigger one. Citrouille uses the Unity engine and features beautifully detailed 2D art. Instead of going for the retro pixelated look, Lumen Section has gone for the complete opposite and created a game that is just bursting with detail. The backgrounds all look great and we love the enemy designs. Even the smallest enemies are crammed with detail and the game has a vibrant look. Fortunately, as good as the haunted castles, pyramids, winter landscapes and Halloween forests look, the amount of detail also comes with a price. The detailed backgrounds sometimes make it hard to see enemies or spot their projectiles in time. Figuring out where the last flower pot you missed is also challenging amid all the chaos. Some players might also not appreciate certain levels that are plunged into darkness, apart from a small area of visibility around the player. These issues were not enough to make us stop playing the game, but they were annoying enough to mention. The audio and sound effects in Citrouille match the arcade style of the game. Instead of some cliche chiptunes, the music in the game sounds nice and upbeat, while the sound effects provide good audio feedback. In terms of controls, Citrouille can be played with a keyboard, but it just feels way better with a decent analog controller, especially in multiplayer. In conclusion, Citrouille is a game that can be tough as nails if you want it, but it also has enough options to tone down the challenge for younger or less skilled players. The visuals are simply adorable, and it's clear that a lot of care and attention went into the game's design. Lumen's section succeeded admirably in creating a modern spin on the genre, without turning it into something that feels derivative. Overall, this is a really underrated game that deserves more attention, so don't hesitate to add it to your collection. It's not without its flaws, but even the relatively short time it can be completed can't hold it back from being a blast to play. Thanks for joining me for this Citrouille PC review. Remember to like, subscribe and share. Until next time.